Chris Cortijo, Robert Sanchez, Ernie Allen, and Kat Talbot preceded him. And 3 of them were on duty. 3 of them were off duty. All of them were killed in traffic collisions, although that doesn't begin to talk about the depth of evil that was involved in several of the collisions. 1 was a murder, 2 were manslaughters. The entire department has suffered through this. There's hardly a division or an officer that didn't know or know of at least one of these individuals. So it's been a tough year, and I think that is an understatement. My only hope is that this ends it, but as you all know, I'm not in the wish for the best business. So we will continue to push traffic safety, although I think it overstates it to say that these were avoidable. So, but we will continue to push that, push seat belts, awareness while you're riding a motorcycle, things like that. We miss all these officers very much. Commissioner Saltzman commented on a number of recruits at the graduation. We started a new class this week, and I think we have 41, Sandy Jo? 40?
One wiped out of the last.
All right, 40 then. So we're making some progress. We are working with Personnel Department and the Mayor's Office on the process, and I expect to be reviewing a new MOA between us and Personnel Department that will come to Commission after I've reviewed it. So that will allow us to be more involved in the process, which we think will lead to an increase in class sizes. So those are positive things. I joined the mayor in the closure of Summer Night Lights for the year this past weekend. It was a great year for Summer Night Lights. The 32 parks saw significant crime reductions, and we had literally hundreds of thousands of folks attend. My most recent discussion with our folks that donate the food, and it is a donation, were that they served over 700,000 meals during this Summer Night Lights, and I think that brings our total to well over 5 million meals served. Pretty incredible stuff. On to my comments on crime, as usual. Homicides were down 7.7% compared to last year and 14.8% compared to 2012. To give you an idea what that means, we are down 15 homicides as compared to last year at this time. And last year, of course, was our lowest year for homicides since the mid-'60s. So if things hold, this will be another record year in reductions for homicide. We have suffered an increase in rapes, particularly if you include the new category of rape as defined under UCR. The old category of rape, which is comparable to what we had last year, is up 3%. Robberies are down about 5%. Aggravated assaults due to an increase in domestic violence and a reinvigoration of the way we code those incidents and translate them from penal code to UCR are up 17%. That gives us a total violent crime increase of 6%. Property crime is down across the board. Burglaries are down 9.8%. Motor vehicle thefts are down 8.8%. Burglary theft from vehicles are down 10.3%. And personal thefts are down 1%. That gives a total property crime reduction of just under 7%. And that gives us an aggregate crime reduction, total crime reduction, Part 1 crimes, of 4.6% compared to last year and 7.6% compared to 2012. The shootings are down across the city. Incidents of shots fired are down 9.2%. Incidents of victims shot is down 12.2%. Categorical uses of force are down significantly since last year. They're down 35%. We have 52 so far this year, 2014. That is the lowest number of significant use of force incidents by Los Angeles police officers since I have been chief. Officer-involved shootings are also down. We have had 22 officer-involved shootings so far year to date. This is down 31% compared to 2013. And this is also the lowest total so far this year in my 4 years as chief, or 5 years as chief of police. Traffic accidents, we have had 2.3% more traffic collisions this year than last. Driving under the influence-related traffic collisions, however, are down 6.1%. Hit and runs are also down 5.7%. And the two most serious categories of hit and runs, serious injury, are down 11.9%, and fatals are down 39%. So we're making some progress on hit and runs, and I thank the public for their cooperation in this. Motor vehicle versus pedestrian accidents are down in total 2.8%, and bicycle-involved accidents are down in total 13.3%. Personnel statistics, we have 9,938 sworn personnel, 2,756 civilian personnel, 267 level 1 reserves, 20 level 2s, 132 level 3s, 372 specialist volunteers, and 45 chaplain counselors. And we currently have 5,452 cadets in our cadet program. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. We do have two public comment cards. We have Mr. Herman, followed by Ted Hayes.
For the record, I did sign the card up as Batman, but however, Batman is not here. But I'm here to talk clearly about the unlawful actions of the services that are provided for us constituents. The reward process of murders at City Hall is ridiculous. I'm going to name them. Item number 41, Tyree Rowe. Item 39, Clarence Borney. Item 36, Luis Vasquez. Item 35, Raymond Estrada. $50,000 rewards at a time that we claim that the safety of the public's interest is not a result of the lack inadequate services. And so I say to the Inspector General, Mr. Bustamante, what action or course of action will you take to effectuate some understanding of what's going on here? Obviously, in memory of Officer Eric, and it's pronounced Alcaraz, to speak is this, that we know that we've become the hit-and-run capital of the world. And we know that the city public officials have not banned, but promoted the consumption and necessity for more alcohol permits. And this commission is responsible for that, because it is your responsibility to protect the public from our need, our desire, are ambitious to have alcohol.
Okay, Mr. Herman, you need to address the body, okay? Keep turning around. You got to fight that urge.
Okay,
Talk to the body.
Under the Brown Act, I'm going to continue and speak out rather than protect the harm to serve and protect from the liability of my action. In absence, I'm speaking about fair notice. That which should be not unlawful, but in respect to the light of this body and this commission to take an action to protect I, one citizen, and the many other who are affected by the false reports of rewards. Thank you.
Mr. Hayes.
Morning, Mr. Hayes, sir.
Morning. At one time, the LAPD did the policing on our transit system, MTA. They lost that contract. Why? I don't know. I'll dig back into the record and find out why the MTA board was dissatisfied with the work the LAPD had done. But if you've been paying attention, since the Sheriff's Department has taken over MTA, the crime on our transit system has escalated beyond belief. And I am a witness of that because I am transit obligated. So I don't know whether or not the LAPD will once again be in a running for policing the transit system. But I think it's something worthy of an investigation by this commission to find out what the MTA board has in mind, because they're thoroughly dissatisfied with the Sheriff's Department for many reasons. So I don't know whether we can spare our officers to ride the rails and ride the buses. That's something for you to decide. But we do need better security and protection on the transit system. No question about this. It's not unincorporated areas that the sheriff is policing. It's areas that go through every district the police department is in. And ironically, when something happens, the operators don't call upon the LAPD. They wait for the sheriff to arrive. And maybe, well, anyway. So anyway, I suggest that you agendize that or have some communications go out to various persons and agencies involved to find out what the prospects are for the future of policing the MTA.
Thank you. We're now on item number 3, report of the Executive Director. Mr. Tifeng.
Morning, Mr. President, members of the Commission. No report today.
You don't even want to talk about your award?
No, sir.
Okay.
I'm very appreciative, but I'd rather not talk about it. Thank you.
Item number 4, report of the Inspector General. Mr. Bustamante.
Thank you, Commissioners. Likewise, I have no report.
Item number 5 consists of information items. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. We do have one public comment on item number 3 and item number 4. Mr. Herman. This is for item number 3.
It's humbling. I'll wait for Mr. Tifeng, but you got to run the time.
I can hear you, sir.
Mr. Tifeng, I want to say personally thank you for your service. I've known you more than 10 years, and I've been participating as a community activist and also a strong advocate at City Hall. And you've been very considerate and conscious of my actions. You don't take them personally like some have the negative effect to do so. And yes, sometimes I can be a little irate in my appearance and costume, but it's not about me. It's about servicing the same service you're providing for the public. So I just wanted to acknowledge this point of it today as I have this opportunity, because for all I know, the way things are going in this society of ours, calamity can happen at any time and moment. But I just want to say thank you for all that you do, all that you provided, and I take nothing out of perspective to say, but thank you. And congratulations on your ceremony and the event to come pretty soon. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Item number 4, Mr. Herman. Report of the Inspector General.
Now, going back on business with the personal concern of importance is what have you to ensure the adequate community notice for activities, service, and programs, Mr. Inspector General? Is it not true that the duty of your office and the primary purpose is to be effective in the response to what the needs are from the publics?
Mr. Herman, keep it on topic. Look at the agenda, please.
Okay. So we're talking about the status of future agenda items, pending projects, and significant incidents.
Right.
A significant incident is a situation where Mr. Alcaraz passed away by whatever circumstances. It could have been a hit and run. It could have been intentional. It could have been conspiracy. How many times have we heard that word conspiracy where public officials and the legal enforcement have been attacked or criticized and then been injured later on? So I'm not off topic. So getting back on topic, sir. When it comes to significant incidents, I myself may become a significant incident because of my alleged public interest. I'm not going to be deterred to help the public out when it comes to understanding our rights in the state of California, not only under the Brown Act, but in the situation of our civil rights, to come here and adequately say that we are not politically incorrect. we are politically right. When we have the purpose of being here and speaking primary to the main issues of concern, nobody cares about the special interests. And when I vote this November, off topic now, it's going to be for who else? Who better than for the governor? Not Jerry Brown. Thank you.
We're on item number 5. Consists of information items and filed items relative to noise variances and special event permits submitted for the period ending September 5th, 2014. Item number 6, presentations. Do we have any presentations?
None today.
Thank you. Item number 7, consent agenda items. These items are considered to be routine and non-controversial, upon which the board is provided with adequate information for approval without inquiry or discussion. Would a commissioner wish to pull an item as special for discussion?
I just have a comment on item J. It's the first rubber stamp we've accepted as a gift, and it's a point of information. We should be very careful about accepting rubber stamps. I'll move approval of all the other items, and thanking the donors, every one of them, on F, G, H, I, J, K, L, and M.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. We are now on item number 8, regular agenda items. Would a commissioner wish to pull an item as special for discussion? 8.
I'd like to, in addition to the 3 verbal presentations, A, B, and C, I would like to hear from the department on item 8F.
Yeah,
I
right.
would move approval of items 8D and 8E.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
Okay, we'll begin with item number 8A, verbal presentation and update from the commanding officer and Community Police Advisory Board representative regarding community-initiated problem-solving, crime strategies, and other programs and goals within the Southeast area.
Welcome. Morning. Thanks for coming.
Good morning. I'd like to start off by introducing the folks that are with me. Police Officer Dawson Hill, who runs our volunteer programs and oversees and kind of works the Community Police Advisory Board, and Miss Teresa Martinez, who is our CPAB president. And so because this is primarily focused on CPAB, I'll let Miss Martinez go first.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Morning.
My name is Teresa Martinez. I've been a CPAB member for over 16 years, co-chair and assistant co-chair for the past 10 years. They've been voting me in. So I have regular about 50 members in our CPAB. We do a lot of work with the police. My main concern is communication, which we've been having. We do a lot of work with the clergy, the volunteers in the community. We also, at the beginning of each year, I like to talk to the member, ask them what kind of guest speaker do you want us to present. And I got a lot of feedback, and we get a lot of good speakers. We also spoke about identity fraud, identity theft, also lock, hide, and keep it. Also, we always get speakers for prostitution, also sex trafficking, and domestic violence. We have a good feedback on those. We also communicate with the community at least 3 times a year. We have a walk to pass out information, like we always go down Figueroa. We like to give out valuable information if they need how to clear themselves, what kind of help they need. Also for the veterans who are homeless, we work with the veteran, with the VA, who also we try to go and serve food for the VA, help them out. With the clergy, we also, when there's some kind of a shooting or somebody had passed away, we like to get together, the clergy, the CPAB, volunteers, and go to the family, talk to them, console them, and we also try to raise a little money to help them out with any little thing they need. which they like, do appreciate our help. Also, our National Night Out, we have a lot of participation. We have a lot of people coming from different organizations, give out information. We also try to give them some little gift from us to help, like the school. We try to get like a little gift bag with school supply, pencils, paper, notebooks, or anything that will help the kids to start school. Anything else?
Do you want to throw anything?
Also, my name is Officer Hill. We started a Teen CPAB. It's a martial art mentoring program. And just in May, we have over 30 students. And it's a great program because the kids get a chance to sit down and talk about their goals. One young lady in Southeast says she's going to be the Secretary of State. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And one gentleman said in the year 2026, he's going to be a physical therapist at the Olympics. So these are incredible things to hear from young kids that are underprivileged that are living in Southeast. And so we just started the program, and we just hope that it will grow. And I think being in a TCPAB is just a way that they can espouse to their goals and go on to college and go from
Olympics is in 24 and 28. Just tell them. 24. Move it up a little bit. Okay?
That's true.
Tell him to give me a ring because we got to move his schedule up a couple
There you
of years.
go.
Okay?
There you go. And I think another thing that the CPAB is really trying to do is really trying to reach the part of the community who are non-English speakers. We have CPAB members such as Teresa that are bilingual. So we try to work with other organizations like Best Start, who's funded by First LA, and get out there and really try to reach those parents that are single parents, that are on their own through parenting classes. And so it's like a win-win that we work together. Some volunteers from Best Start work with us, and we in turn work with them.
Great. Phil?
Thank you. I am currently in my 8th year as the area commanding officer for Southeast. And as I look back for this presentation each year, some of the numbers that I see and the changes that I see are pretty incredible. A couple of things that I want to touch on that they were rather humble with, and that's the 3 walks that they talked about. Those walks are focused primarily on Figueroa, and they're not only CPAB, but it's also our clergy council who go out and try and make contact with young ladies who are out working on Figueroa. And the idea is not to go out there with the idea to arrest, but to what can we do to help? What can we do to try and address whatever situation it is that got you out here? And they've worked with Children of the Night and some other organizations to really try and impact that problem in a different way. And anecdotally, if you take a drive down Figueroa today compared to years past, it's relatively empty. The other is her National Night Out, and they didn't really mention a number, and in her notes it says there was about 3,500 people there that came, but I think it was really closer to 4,000 that were there over the time. It was packed, and so each year CPAB and Dawson have improved our National Night Out, and it's really become something that's very looked forward to by the community, and it's been a completely positive event. Some of the other things that we're focused on in our community safety partnership is coming up on its 3rd year now. And the impact that it's had on the public housing developments and Watts as a whole has been just phenomenal. There are things that we can't measure. We can't measure hope. We can't measure the demeanor when you go into the public housing developments. And when you do, and one of the stories that I tell that hopefully can kind of paint the picture. 2 years ago, I walked into Imperial Court's gym during an event, and a little 3-year-old boy came over towards me, and his father grabbed him, yanked him away, and said, "That's the police. We don't talk to them." And today, when you walk into that same gym, the kids are coming up to officers. The kids are embracing the officers, and the parents are not anywhere near that kind of negativity, and in many cases the parents come up with the kids. And so to try and measure what we're doing is very difficult from that standpoint. But I think one of the most amazing statistics that we have. I took a look from 2001 to 2011, and in Jordan Downs, Nickerson Gardens, Imperial Courts, there were 78 homicides. We averaged about 7 to 7.5 per year. Since 2012, just about a month after we started CSP, there's only been 4, a little over 1 per year. But the most amazing number is that Jordan Downs, as of August 28th, just went 3 years without a single homicide.
Wow.
And the change in those communities is drastic. And to think that there's kids who have been living there for 3 years and can say, I've never seen anybody shot and killed in my community, is a drastic change from what we've seen in the past. Some of the programs that we have related to CSP and even stretch beyond just the CSP officers, but also to other officers in Southeast. Operation Progress on all these are generally focused on kids, and that's the main focus that we have. Operation Progress, I believe the number is 35 kids that they now have enrolled in school, and Operation Progress is a private organization that recently received a very, very significant donation. The board oversees the kids going, and they are paying scholarships from kindergarten through a 4-year college as long as those kids stay in good standing. And we have 35 kids in that now. Not all of those kids are from the public housing developments, but they're from the surrounding areas also. We have partnered with a number of large organizations that have now seen the transition in Watts and are coming in. Children's Institute, Inc. is a very significant one, and probably the most significant thing that they're involved in is treating trauma and mental health issues, and that is, in my opinion, one of the primary things that we need to focus on to change a community that has been suffering violence for decades. CII is about to start building a new facility at 103rd and Slater. It's going to make that block between Slater and Compton on 103rd kind of the focus of Watts. The councilman and the CSP office is going to move into the old fire station. That will also become the home for our pals, the old fire station, police station, city hall. That we anticipate happening before the end of the year. Our Watts Bears football team, 9, 10, 11-year-olds, for the first time have kids that are on the team from all 3 public housing developments. The amazing thing with this is that parents who have been gang rivals who couldn't stand to be around each other are now going from all 3 developments to games and cheering for their kids, all dressed in Bears colors instead of gang colors. Sunburst Youth Academy is a program that we've partnered with the National Guard, and our focus on that is to take kids who commit crimes that we aren't required to book and get them enrolled in that program. It's a 5-month live-in academy, if you will, where they get high school credits. At National Night Out, I had 2 young ladies who were 17 and 18 years old who came up to me and asked if I remember them, and I didn't. They started bragging that they had just graduated from Sunburst and described. It's a very powerful to hear some of those kids talk about the situation that they were in and then what they are when they come out, the self-confidence, the self-discipline, the enthusiasm for life that's put into them by going through that. And then we mentor them for a year when they get out. Hopefully that'll take them to a point that these young ladies were. One is going to ASU next year, and the other one is going to be joining the Air Force. And so, these kinds of programs save millions and millions of dollars putting the kids into something positive as opposed to putting them into the judicial system. Starburst is another program for science, math, and English that the National Guard partners with us to take. I think we put about 500 kids over there for a 5-day class. The schools in Watts are bragging that they're not only the the classes are doing better as far as the academics, but also the behavior in their schools are much better after these kids have gone to that 5-day program. Our Girl Scouts continue on with other programs related to that, father-daughter dances, those sort of things that for those kids who don't have fathers, officers go in place of the fathers. USC, UCLA tutoring. We have a Watts Love Festival that's put on by a local church that is every other week and goes from location to location to location in Watts. They do they feed people. They have a band, and it's all it has brought the communities together like I haven't seen in my time there. We also have some 12-step programs, and these are usually mothers and of kids who have been killed, and they're dealing with severe trauma. We have volunteers who come in and do a 12-step class that lasts for a number of weeks, and again, to hear some of the folks talk about the things that they've gone through living in Watts in the past, and to go through those classes, they come out very different people, and probably the most significant difference that we see is that they finish the class and they're now ready to stand up and take responsibility for their community and for the things that they can do differently. And that kind of brings me around to a point I'd like to make that in my opinion, has shown more change than anything else, and that is that in January, our interventionists in Watts stood up in the Watts Gang Task Force meeting and said that they had been through enough, that they were going to change the way things are done in Watts and work very differently with the police, and rather than call themselves interventionists, community leaders. And in doing so, we now have people that call the police and tell us things ahead of time. We now have people who are calling officers that they trust and telling us, this is the person who did that. And we're now we've taken that next step from prevention to prevention and then helping us to solve crimes. I mentioned that there were 4 homicides in the 4 housing developments since 2011, and in all 4 of those homicides were solved within 2 weeks. And that's the result that we're seeing from developing the relationships that we have in a community that never used to even look at the police, much less talk to them. Our intervention is in transition right now for the Watts Regional Grid. They're changing vendors, and the contract ran out at the end of June. We still do not have a Watts Regional Grid in place. I met with Ann Tremblay, the new director, yesterday, and she's hoping that it's back fully in place within the next few weeks. It has had an impact on our safe passage because we haven't had intervention involved in that. But going back to the Watts side, as we've gone through this transition, the community leaders who had been part of GRID in the past and ultimately will probably be part of GRID in the future have stepped up and have not backed off because they're not getting paid. They realize the accomplishments that they've made and don't want to lose ground on that. Yesterday, we had 14 new officers that came into Southeast, and as we go around and show them what's going on in Watts and what we're doing, I brought in 6 interventionists to the roll call room and had them address the new officers and talk about what they've seen in the past, talk about their experiences, talk about where we're at now. And some of them shared some very personal information about kids they had lost in gang violence. And at the end, when the 6 interventionists finished, one of them looked at the officers and said, now tell us what you think about us being here in your roll call room. And I had a kid who had graduated from the academy 4 days prior who stood up and said, I grew up at 55 in Avalon, and my brothers are gang members. I don't even talk to them anymore because I can't. It's a conflict. I've seen my mom cry all night because I've seen my brothers shot, and I couldn't be more happy to see people from a community that's had this much violence stepping up to do something different and to make it work. And so had a couple of other officers that stood up and had some comments not quite as compelling as that, but they were very positive. And those are the kind of things that, for me, really drive home the point that we're changing the culture of the officers in that division.
Ms. Martinez, Teresa,
Yes.
next Monday or the Monday after, I'm going to be doing another tour and ride-along in Southeast. And if you'd join me, I'd love to spend a little bit of time with you.
I'll gladly do.
Okay?
Yes.
If you're available?
Yes, I
We'll
will.
make arrangements.
Mhm.
So it'll be either next Monday or the Monday after if you can.
Okay.
Okay? Thanks for all you're doing.
Thank you.
Thanks for a really powerful presentation. Your programs sound incredibly successful, and I am just really pleased to hear about how effective these prevention efforts are and how diverse they are, and the amount of programs you've put into community development and support. It's really inspiring.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
If I can just add, Commissioner, real quick, Captain Tingley's efforts are highlighted, matter of fact, this week on CBS National News. He's also, the Community Safety Partnership has also been on the cover of New York Times Magazine. It's been in the New York Times, LA Times. It is a nationally recognized program, and I'm very, very proud of Southeast. I worked Southeast for many, many years, and it has always struggled with community relations, and to see it be the one of the flagship community relations programs in not only the city but the nation is very heartwarming.
Can
you,
you send
Chief.
us the links to those articles? I heard about it. Somebody called me on the story yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to see it. There was something on this week, I guess.
I'm really pleased that over the last week or two we've received 2 or 3 very, very positive news stories, which is really hard to come by.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised based on what we've heard today. Thanks.
Great.
Well, there's a newscaster in Channel 2. He's a member. He is the South CPAP member for the Valley. He's a Channel 2 weatherman, Josh Rubenstein.
Oh, he's a great guy.
Yes, I met him last year at a summit.
He was right about the rain yesterday, too, so I'm
Yes.
good with Josh.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're now on item 8B, Department's verbal presentation and discussion relative to the Autism Speaks Symposium.
Morning.
Good morning. Good morning. Dr. Luann Pinnell, Director of Police Training and Education. It's a pleasure to be here this morning, and we want to give you an update on our Autism Symposium. Just a correction, it's not Autism Speaks because that's one specific group, but we have been working with our autism community and have had a grant from the Police Foundation to put on 4 autism symposiums. And so I think some of you have seen this before, but most of the panel has not. So we want to make sure that you know what is coming around the corner. Our last symposium is going to be on October 9th, and you're welcome to join us. And to get a visual what that's like, I hope this works.
Well, we can see it here, so we're not ignoring you, okay? It's on our screen.
Okay. Should be coming up. Mission Possible is a training initiative developed by the Los Angeles Police Department in conjunction with several community partners because we wanted to make a difference in how law enforcement and the autism community work.
Stay away from the vehicle. Put your hands in the air like you don't care.
The full name is Mission Possible, Bridging the Gap Between Law Enforcement and the Autism Community. The Los Angeles Police Department wanted to be at the forefront of the mission of learning how law enforcement and the autism community can work better together.
Everyone stay away from the car. Step away from the car.
Because the symptoms of autism can be really diffuse across a wide spectrum, some people might have auditory problems or verbal communication problems. Other people might have particular behaviors or sounds that they make that might be unknown to an officer.
Are you having a good day with your officer?
Yes.
Is he a good officer?
Yes.
We want to make sure that officers can respond safely, both for them and for the rest of the community, in situations involving people with autism, or actually any kind of special needs or diversity.
All right, let's go check out that really awesome example.
The day starts when our officers experience training that helps them understand several different kinds of symptoms of autism or special needs. What does it mean to have difficulty with fine motor skills, or overstimulation, or sensory processing, communication deficits? What does that mean to an officer in the field? Our solution was to bring in 100 kids, junior high and high school students, who are diagnosed on the autism spectrum. These kids are paired one-on-one with police officers for the day, and they get to experience hands-on what it's like to interact with a police officer. We realize that kids with autism are 7 times more likely to have a law enforcement encounter for a whole number of reasons. Sometimes it has to do with bullying, running away, other things associated with their diagnosis, and other situations where they're reacting to environments, maybe at the mall or at the movies, that are foreign or different to them, and law enforcement gets called in. By being paired one-on-one with a law enforcement officer, these kids get to see what it's like to interact with law enforcement and how to ask for help. It's really important for our officers to know how to respond, but it's equally important for these kids to know how to respond safely.
When you see the lights like that, you have to move out of the way, right? Because let's move over to the side.
Mission Possible is a model program that's not seen anywhere else in the country, with amazing results for the police partners, the student partners, and the adults in the community who were here to witness it.
They enjoy food together, and they'll also get their picture taken so that they can go home with a picture of them and their officer in uniform. We want to recreate a better image of law enforcement in the community. After lunch, each officer and student pair will go to 5 different safety stations to learn how to interact safely in an emergency. The first one is tools of the police, and they'll go out to an officer's car and get to go inside, talk about the tools on their belt, and make sure that they really understand boundaries. The next station is with the LA Fire Department. We want to be sure that if they needed the services of the fire department, they would feel comfortable and confident going with them wherever they needed to go. One of the favorite stations we have is How Can the Police Help Me? At this station, kids will pull different scenarios from a box and role play with their police officer how to ask someone in uniform for help. ID Me is a station where we look at the science of fingerprinting, how the police use fingerprints, and they get a chance to both fingerprint themselves and add to a creative art project. Officer Simon Says plays off of the game Simon Says. And in this situation, kids are reinforced for responding appropriately to an officer. An equally compelling and important part of this training is the training that we do as well for the teachers, parents, and advocates of autism. For these safety instructions to have the most impact, we need parents, teachers, and advocates to reinforce these safety concepts at home and at school. If they had to call 911, we want them to give the best information so that our officers can be informed and respond safely. We trained over 100 officers and 100 kids with autism, as well as over 50 or 60 teachers, parents, and advocates. The day was a great success.
We definitely need more events like this, and it should be replicated everywhere. LA's leading the way.
And together, we really can make a difference. We really can make this mission possible.
Thank you for coming to Mission Possible.
Attorney, do we have any copyright liability there?
So certainly we wanted to share that with you. At the end of this last symposium in October, we'll have trained over 400 officers, over 400 students. we've developed a very strong relationship with LAUSD and their special needs department. In fact, they are going on and taking a different segment of this course and replicating it with their school police and with their staff members as well. So it's created a lot of positive interaction. We've invited members of LA School Police and also the Sheriff's Department to each event, trying to expand the awareness across the board. And in recognition that next year is 2015, the Special Olympics will be in Los Angeles, and we want to heighten the awareness of our officers to those with special needs. Following this, the last part of the grant is we will complete an e-learning with all the video footage and the different pieces of information that we've had from our experts, and make sure that everyone in the frontline officers beyond the 400 are also exposed to this information.
Wonderful. Any comments, questions?
I'm sorry, I have a question. The last, it's outstanding. The last point that you made about the online training is for whom?
It'll be for all the patrol officers. Lieutenants and below will all take it through their e-learning portal.
Okay, great. That's wonderful. Thank you.
And then I think in February, because we were so stringent with our funds, we also had leftover money. So we're going to make sure that frontline officers, probably in about February, they'll do a smaller version of this course, maybe a 4-hour version, so that supervisors are also reinforcing and making decisions at that level that support the officers in paying attention to these needs. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy, use the mic.
How were the kids selected, and were they mostly high-functioning autistic kids? And I'm really happy that you included LAUSD.
Thank you. We actually asked for the whole spectrum, so that when the officers are sitting at a table, they get to see really the difficulty with understanding autism is the spectrum of the disorder, where you can have somebody who's nonverbal all the way to somebody who's highly intelligent but has specific social problems. So when they're sitting at their table together, and some of the feedback from our officers suggested that that was very helpful to them as well. So when we worked with LAUSD, we asked for junior high and senior high students specifically, because often the younger kids are very sheltered, but also I think across the board for most of the general population, we all think of autism as a children's disorder. And so for our officers, what does that look like when somebody's driving a car, in the different places that they could be at the mall? We wanted to target junior high and senior high students who want to have more independence from their parents so that they can be more independent but also safe. So, and then we had probably about 30 from the help group and from other entities. So the officers really did through the day get to see a wide variety of what that would be. Thank you.
So I just want to thank you and say how impressed I continue to be with this program among others. This is clearly groundbreaking, and as you said in the video, I hope other departments will follow suit. I want to thank you and Chief Beck, command staff, for the commitment of resources to this program, which is so important. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Herman.
Good afternoon. And straight out of the mouth of the Guide to American Rights under the Disability Rights Laws, it pertains to this issue. The ADA prohibits discrimination on the basis of disability within employment, state and local government, public accommodations, commercial facilities, transportation, telecommunications, any sort of communication, which applies to the United States of Congress. So I can relate and actually teach some of you about people with autism, for that is my specialty. I'm a behavior specialist, for the record, to let you know. And yes, in this umbrella of children who fall under the category of autistic behavior, the real situation of what comes to harm not just to them, but the population of people who have related disability issues is communication. And how well trained is our police department, or how adequately trained or are not trained when it comes to giving our officers the appropriate training to deal with the public of people who have mental issues, who have disability issues, and more so, autism. For the rocking, odd behavior, the quirks, the idiosyncrasies of their behavior, is it something for us to judge? Are we insensitive to the needs of children with autism? Then let us do more in perspective with this notion that let us not judge others for who they are, but let us have concern to educate and help those as to educate those who are helping us in the service they're providing under the same guidelines under the ADA, Title I and II, and Title III disability rights laws. Thank you.
Okay, we have one more comment card. We have Mr. Ted Hayes.
I think it would have been better had that presentation delved into the number of incidents we've been having recently with people who are mentally ill. The sheriff points out that the jail is the largest mentally ill institution in the state. And so I would hope that there is a policy for training officers how to detect a mentally ill person, and perhaps how to handle them, if that's possible. And that's what bothers me. Now, the other thing about accommodations, I have no teeth. So when I go to jail, I can't eat the burritos that they serve because I can't chew them. And if I try to chew them, who's going to do the Heimlich? No one. So when I point out my disability, they tell me, we don't have a blender here. We don't blend, we don't puree, we don't liquefy anything. If you can't eat, that's too bad. But unfortunately, the medical profession says this: if you can't feed your inmates, you've got to release them. Now that seems to be reasonable. You can't allow them to be as I do, be there and not eat until I'm released. Now that's an ongoing question. It's never been resolved, and it took place in January. But why can't we have a petty cash at every lockup where you run out to Rite Aid and buy a $25 blender? Seems reasonable, seems possible, but it never happens. So because they don't have the accommodations, they simply allow, and look, lots of old guys go to prison, to jail, and they have to be fed, and they don't have teeth either.
Thank you. We are now on item number 8C, Department's verbal report and discussion relative to the status of the latent fingerprint backlog.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. Hi. Members of the Commission, Chief Inspector General Kirk Albanese, Chief of Detectives. With me is Police Administrator Yvette Burney, Commanding Officer of Scientific Investigation Division. And I believe, Yvette, you're going to introduce your staff.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce my staff. I have with me today Lieutenant Alan Hamilton, who is Assistant to the CO. Right here. Mr. Chuck Siegler, who is the officer in charge of our technical lab. Chuck here. And Miss Denise Williams, who is our officer in charge of our latent print unit.
We were asked to come before the Commission and provide an update relative to the latent print unit and backlog. I'll give you an overview, and certainly will include the issue of backlog within my remarks. Scientific Investigation Division is really split in two. There's a crime lab where we analyze DNA, and there is a technical lab where we do such things as latent prints, electronics, polygraph, and photography. I'm going to talk about the latent print unit today in terms of functioning, staffing, workload capacity, intake and turnaround, hit ratio, backlog, and our ALPO partnership with the Office of Operations. And ALPO is Area Latent Print Officer Program. The responsibility for all latent prints citywide falls on the shoulders of the latent print unit. And essentially the breakdown in terms of the work function of the unit is field investigations, where they go to crime scenes and collect print evidence, LAFIS analysis, and LAFIS is the LA Automated Fingerprint Identification System, manual comparison, that final work that tells us that those prints belong to that individual, court testimony, and liaison with detective personnel citywide. Their authorized strength is 96 personnel. The majority of those positions fall under Print Specialist 3, that category. Their current staffing is 60. They're down 36 positions. The last time a person was hired for the latent print unit was January of '09. At that time, they were full capacity for a short period of time. They've been authorized within this budget period, this fiscal year, to hire 8 in March of 2015. Due to the staffing issues over the last several years, we began to take a look at intake in August of 12. And at that time, we made a determination that we could continue to process all violent crime print investigations, but that we would limit property crime. And so we limited property crime intake to 10 cases per area, 21 areas, 200 cases, 210 cases per deployment period. The areas pick which 10 cases they want to put forth in terms of property. So for example, if they were having a burglary problem or cars were being broken into, if that was a problem that they prioritized locally, they would prioritize those 10 cases. The commitment on the part of SID was an 8-week turnaround on all cases, whether violent or property. In terms of capacity, they looked at that in the summer of 12 and determined that the capacity of the unit, based on the staffing at that time, was 380 cases. That's what they could handle per deployment period. The current capacity, which we just reevaluated 2 years later, August of 14, is 285 cases. That's based on the staffing of 60 personnel. Our current intake is 75 violent crimes a deployment period and 210 property crimes. We stayed with that number of 210.
Chief Albanese?
Yes.
How long is the deployment period? How long is
28 days, okay. Commissioner. And there are 13 deployment periods in the year. So 210, 75, that's 285 cases that they handle per DP, but the intake is 600, each DP. So 315 cases each deployment period go into a backlog category that we can't get to. If you look at that over the course of the year, it's over 4,000 cases. Our current total backlog, and we go back to what cases are within statute. So criminal statute relative to property crime, 3 years. So we look at that as our backlog because anything older than that is no longer backlog. There's nothing that can be done with it, is 5,455 cases. So that's an explanation in terms of backlog. Our hit ratio. In terms of the analysis done by the latent print unit as it relates to violent crime, they have a 43% hit ratio. In terms of property crime, 29%.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Is there a reason why we don't have this in writing? Why is this a verbal report with all of these statistics?
Commissioner, we were asked to give a verbal report, but I would be happy to cause a written report to be prepared.
Commissioner, I'll take responsibility for that. It was a request of Commissioner Soboroff's a couple weeks ago based on community inquiries, and to turn this around to get before you, we could have a follow-up report, but I think that the information coming forward now, because it is timely, budget timing.
No, absolutely. What I'm looking at is they have a written report in front of them, and I'd actually like to be able to understand instead of sitting here scribbling as he's speaking. But let's go ahead and do this. But I've addressed this before and asked about these reports that are full of statistics. And I'm not claiming to be a genius, and I'm certainly not claiming to be an idiot, but I'm having difficulty making the comparisons from one time period to another when it's all verbal. So let's go ahead. But I have difficulty with this. I asked before that when possible, and it seems to be possible because you all have notes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Commissioner, I'll try to summarize it because I recognize it is a lot of information.
Keep going, because you were on a train here, and I want to hear where it stops.
All right, okay. I mentioned earlier our ALPO program, and so...
Hold. You were on a train of thought. What I'm trying to get in my mind is how much backlog we have, and the last thing you said was you have a huge success hit ratio, so I'm trying to translate the amount of backlog to the amount of hits that we're not getting because they're in a backlog.
That's a significant point. So the capacity of the unit is the capacity of the unit. So we have more workload coming in than we have capacity to put out. And this is technical work. The investigations associated with this are time-consuming and labor-intensive. And so I mentioned that the backlog in total, within statute, was 5,455 cases. I mentioned that each month, each deployment period, we generate 315 cases of backlog. I mentioned the hit ratio, Commissioner, that you just alluded to. One of the important aspects of what we're trying to do, and this is all based on the fact that the budget didn't allow for hires. I think we all know that. The ALPO program that we are in a partnership with the Office of Operations Chief Paysinger and his people allows officers at each of the 21 stations to go through training that the latent print unit put on, and then they are able to go back into the field and take prints. We allow them to take prints at property crime investigations, not at violent crime investigations. What that does is it frees up latent print specialists who are cross-trained in all the disciplines that I mentioned earlier, so they can go back to headquarters at SID and do the LAFIS comparison, the manual comparison, prepare for court testimony, all the things that sworn officers don't have the ability to do, nor do they have the expertise, nor will they ever have that level of expertise. And so that is an important partnership. I mentioned that the city has given us the right to hire 8 people at the end of this fiscal year, around March. There's a training period, there's a classroom, there's field training. We believe that in the fall of 2015, they'll be able to at least work alone in the field. Their training won't be done, but they'll at least be able to work alone in the field, which will free up some additional fingerprint specialists to get back inside and do some additional analytics. And so that's a positive aspect to this. Although if we stay at 60, that'll give us 68, and again, our authority is 96. So at the end of the day, we would love to be able to increase our unit to its full capacity. And by the way, if we are at full capacity at some point, we'll be able to keep up with that 600.
And P.S., because you're not keeping up with that, and because some are running out of the statutes, okay? In other words, there are some that are going unprocessed, okay? Go to the next step. What happens? So people aren't being prosecuted? They're not...
In some cases, that would be a true statement. And now I'll get into a little greater detail. Will probably get me in trouble with Commissioner Addison. But first of all, the issue of those cases, those 315, let's take 315 cases that we can't get to each deployment period. About 60% of those will have LAFIS quality characteristics. So 40% of the 315 are not going to be anything we'd be able to do anything with anyway. Of those that have LAFIS characteristics, 15% won't have an identification of a suspect. And so we can't move forward to manual comparison. So it gets a little complicated in terms of the various steps. But to your point, Commissioner, there are cases that we don't get to that would generate a suspect identification. I think that for me to say otherwise would be disingenuous. That, in fact, is the truth.
Okay.
And I'll close and open for questions that, you know, much like we know a lot about DNA, we hear a lot about DNA, latent prints is an important tool in the department's toolbox to detect crime, hold people accountable, and bring justice to community members. And the people that work the latent print unit are to their credit, they have stood tall in the face of falling numbers and continue to do the job, and I'm very proud of them for that. So that's my presentation.
Questions?
Thank you. That was really informative. Because of the backlog and the pressures from the backlog, how has it affected staff time and effort? So, for example, in an effort to decrease the backlog, are individual staff members, working overtime? Are they, or are they, they have more cases on their, more cases on their docket, or I'm curious about that. Staff resources.
I'll answer it this way, Commissioner. In terms of capacity, that really is what we can get to. And that 285 that I just told you is a bit of a stretch at the number 60 when you do the math and you take a look at what everybody has to do. We were fortunate in being able to redirect some funding for DNA analysis that we no longer needed because we no longer have a DNA backlog to the latent print unit. And we focused on priority one cold case homicides and worked closely with robbery homicide over the past summer and identified a number of hits in that regard. And so we used that overtime, and our priority was cold case homicide. And so when we do have the luxury of an additional resource, we're going to be smart with it. But in terms of the backlog, the reality is at the current staffing, there are going to be cases that 315 that we are going to be unable to get to.
So is the almost 5,500 cases in backlog, does that remain, or do you actually chip into that?
Commissioner, if we secure additional resources, if we have the ability, if we have a particular month that has a lower number of in cases coming in, we certainly keep our people busy. But we will not, at the current staffing, get into a significant number of those cases. That just won't happen based on our current staffing and based on what we know to be the workload coming in each deployment period.
So you have the 5,500, and then you're saying per deployment period, an additional 315 goes into that.
Right, and let me qualify that, and I know, again, apologize that you don't have a written report in front of you, but of the 315 that come in, we know that 40% of those are not going to be LAFIS quality. So you back that out and then take a look at... 15% that yeah, exactly. So, but there, to the Commissioner Sobroff's point, there are going to be cases we don't get to. It's just not, in my judgment, the entire 315 based on some additional factors.
It's a statute of limitations that keeps your backlog down.
The statute of limitations helps keep our backlog down, as sad as that is. That's correct.
Okay. Hate to keep you three in the back from getting back to work. Go get the bad guys, will you? Thanks for your...
We do have one public comment card. We have Mr. Herman.
Well, folks, residents of Los Angeles, and those of you in the crowd, you've heard that there's a lack of capacity for this investigation with fingerprinting. We see that we still need a creative budget that can put more people to work, an issue that the city of Los Angeles continues to have a ceiling deficit on. And this is a result of bad management, and I'm going to place it on for the record. It's bad management when we cannot afford and contribute the monies needed to provide adequate services, transparency for services, and as brought out by the commissioner, and I won't put out her name, as she said, you know, what capacity are we working at? Are we actually attributing a program that's going to work? Or are we going to fall short of climbing Mount Everest and give up? So if we're going to log in fingerprinting and have a backlog, I, as a stakeholder, constituent of the state of California, will say to you, you lack intelligence. Intelligence to create a budget that will provide affirmative action and non-discrimination when it comes to investigating and proceeding in the future for this type of work, fingerprinting. And to obtain more information that is needed to provide the judges to come with an order and get it over with, why hold up the courts with the missing fingerprint? Sounds ridiculous, but all it takes is more people to do the job. We have USC, we have UCLA graduates who can't get a job. Why not have them perform the duties and have the training in service? Thank you.
We have no other comment cards.
Thank you.
We are now on item 8F, Department's Report dated September 4th, 2014, relative to the bias policing update, second quarter report 2014.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Commander Stuart Maislin, the Commanding Officer of Internal Affairs Group. I would have had one employee with me, a detective that's responsible and for putting together most of this report. She happens to be on vacation in France at the moment, but I fully expect that she is listening on council phone. It's only a 9-hour time difference. So at 8 p.m. with a glass of wine, I think she'll find this very entertaining.
Funny guy, Stu.
Soccer game.
Oh, I think I'm going to owe her big time for this.
Okay.
Okay. This is the bias policing report for the second quarter of 2014. When I took over Internal Affairs Group back in about March of 2013, we were preparing bias policing reports that were based totally and completely upon closed complaint information. That is, complaints that were closed within that particular quarter. And we compared that quarter's closed complaint data with closed complaint data from the same quarter from 3 prior years, including a 3-year average. That information has always been limited because it's not a real-time look at the issue. So one of the things that I've tried to do over the course of a little over a year now is provide much more current information that is not as limited as the prior information. So this report is actually the first time, or well, the second time, but this report contains even a greater expansion of what we provided last quarter. So, for example, if we go back to what we did before, we still provide that. The addenda provides the same information that we always provided based upon closed complaint data for the particular quarter we're talking about. And I did promise, though, at one point, probably about a half a year ago, to amend that report to try and expand it and to include year-to-date data. That's still a work in process. I hope to have that by the next quarter, so we'll see if we're successful there. So when we talked about closed case or the adjudication data, that's predominantly the old information. But the first part of the report is the additions. You know, we did provide Table 1 last quarter, which is complaints initiated this year compared to complaints initiated in the prior years. So we're pretty confident in the reliability of that data, although this year's data is based upon a hand search or you know, looking at the cases as they come in and making determinations whether or not they contain bias policing allegations. So as you can see, this year there were year-to-date for the first half of the year 103 bias policing complaints, which projects out to approximately 206, which shows pretty consistent data with the past couple of years as far as the quantity of bias policing complaints initiated. Table 2 is new. And that's something that we talked about last quarter very briefly, as well as Table 3. We're looking at, gee, wouldn't it be nice to know the types of law enforcement encounters or contacts that generated biased policing complaints? We really never reported on that data before. So this is a first attempt, and because it's a first attempt, we don't have anything to compare it to yet. But this is a start. And there's nothing really startling here. Out of the 103 biased policing complaints initiated during the first 2 quarters of the year, 39.8% of them, or 41, were the initial encounter was a traffic stop. And then there were 21 pedestrian stops, 21 radio calls, and 20 others. And of course, the others are included in a footnote. They include a whole variety of encounters, including people trying to report a crime at a police station, citizen flag downs, warrant service, third-party complaints, follow-up investigations, just passers-by that observed something and wanted to make a request. And then there are also occasionally some unknowns that we just don't know based upon the input data. Then Table 3, we talk about the conduct that was alleged where the complainant believes to be discriminatory. Again, not a lot of surprises, but nothing to compare it to yet. And detentions, by far and away the highest number, 59 or 57.3% of the 103. Discourtesy, 28.2%. And just the fact that somebody was arrested was 16.5%. And then, of course, we looked at, and this we talked about last quarter, what type of bias was alleged. And no surprise there, ethnicity accounts for about 93%. And ethnicity, we include race, ethnicity, and religion together. So 93.2% of the 103 complaints were based upon ethnicity, followed by gender, disability, and LGBTQ issues. We added in Table 5 a direct comparison of comparing the ethnicity of the accused and the ethnicity of the complainant. And this information is consistent with the information in Tables 1 and 2 of the addenda, which show, which show that the majority of the complainants are black males, followed by Hispanic males, then black females, and white males. And the ethnicity of the accused are Hispanic males, number 1, followed by white males, then Asian males, and black males. And when you compare the information in Table 5, it shows that African Americans complained against Hispanics 47 times, African Americans versus whites 35 times, and so on. The chart there is pretty self-explanatory, but I can answer any questions you have regarding that. And lastly, we get to the adjudication data. And as I stated initially, when we look at the adjudication data, if you look at the data that's included on page 4 of the addenda, page 4 out of 7, that's based upon comparing second quarter of 2014 to the second quarter of 2013, 2012, 2011, with a 3-year average of only complaints in the second quarter. There's better data than that, and that's included on Table 6 in the report. And Table 6 compares 2 quarters of 2014, year-to-date information for 2014, and we compared that to 3 full years' worth of adjudication data for bias policing complaints. And what this tends to show is that unfounded complaints have increased from 81.7% to 84.6%, and I'm using the 3-year averages when I talk about these as opposed to individual years. Not resolved have decreased from 8.6% to 2.8% year-to-date this year, and insufficient evidence to adjudicate complaints have decreased from 8.8% to 6.7%. Of course, mediated complaints, because this is our brand new bias policing complaint mediation program, and there is no prior data, and we've mediated a total of 15 for the first 2 quarters, or 5.9%. So that's the data.
Is that mediated completed or mediated attempted?
Completed.
And how many were attempted to be mediated?
Well, we've only had a couple where when you say attempted, I'm not sure.
Hey, let's get together and work this out, and where one of the parties said no way.
Okay, and for the second quarter, for example, there were, like I said, 52 complaints of bias policing that were initiated just in this quarter. 25 of them were not eligible, 27 were eligible, 8 were completed. I'm not sure how many are in the hopper, but we do have a good number of complainants that are not interested in engaging in mediation.
Yeah.
They don't have the time. There are a variety of reasons.
We like mediation. We've been working on that new program. I'm interested next time in what the percentage is of people who are offered mediation to of the people that take it. It also, jumps out here.
Stu, do that on both sides because.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
We can do that.
Yeah, but it jumps out here that since 2011, 12, 13, and 14, you've got 0 not guilties and 0 guilties.
Correct.
You've got a whole bunch of tweeners in there.
Well,
you ain't guilty and you ain't not guilty. Where are you?
Well,
the only tell them how you get a guilty or not.
Yeah, there was one bias policing complaint in the year 2012 that was closed, I believe, in 2013, where the chief of police sustained an allegation of bias policing against an officer. And of course, because of the seriousness of any bias policing allegation, that officer was directed to a Board of Rights hearing. What happened at the Board of Rights is the board found the officer not guilty of the bias policing allegation, found him guilty of other allegations, and recommended that he be terminated based upon, of course, the guilty allegations that he was found guilty of, the allegations he was found guilty of. That should have shown up on here as a not guilty. So the reality is there should never be a sustained, I would guess, because of the seriousness of bias policing allegations. Anybody that commits it is going to be directed to a Board of Rights, more than likely. I think I can speak.
Why is one's called sustained and one's guilty?
Right, and it's sustained when the chief of police sustains it. But if it goes to a Board of Rights, the only 2 outcomes are guilty or not guilty.
So one number that we don't have here is how many went to a Board of Rights?
Well, 1 did. And there was a flaw in our system, and it didn't get tracked appropriately in our systems, in our automated systems. So rather than adding it manually, describing what happened. But that was 1, and that was last year. No other complaints of bias policing have been sustained.
Thanks, Commander Maisland. I just have a couple questions so I can understand this better. What kind of criteria or triggers are used to issue spot a complaint of bias policing?
I'm sorry, what?
So first, the complaint has to be identified as a bias policing complaint based on whatever information you receive from the complainant?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so what types of information would trigger that issue to be spotted?
Usually someone makes it very clear what they're complaining about is from their story. Yes.
It must be an explicit discriminatory remark based on these protected categories.
Not necessarily remark. It could be just a feeling that the complainant has.
That's what I'm wondering. So it
yes,
could just
it could
be a feeling.
just their belief that they were racially profiled or that the officers engaged in bias policing by doing whatever the conduct was that they allege occurred.
Okay, that's
Now,
helpful.
it's not always clear at intake. That's why some of these numbers they're not foolproof.
Right.
Because somebody can make a complaint initially, provide very limited information, and then after it's investigated or during the course of the investigation, it becomes clear that they're making a biased policing allegation. So that gets added on, and of course, when the complaint is closed, it gets closed as a biased policing complaint.
Right. Well, that's helpful to know that if the complainant just has a feeling, then it can be identified as a biased policing complaint. And because I think that the complaints initiated probably is a number of significance, because when a complaint is determined unfounded or there's insufficient evidence, then some of that might be due to the complainant not wanting to pursue an investigation further. Is that correct?
That could certainly be true when it comes to insufficient. Say they make a complaint that the officer stopped me because I'm something, whatever it may be. And then the sergeant says, well, I'd like to get a tape-recorded interview. I'd like to find out everything, why you believe you were stopped or why you believe it was biased, what occurred, all of this. And the person says, I can't talk to you right now. I'll come to the station later, and I'll be happy to meet with you then. And the individual doesn't show up. We still initiate a biased policing complaint.
Okay.
And then we make numerous attempts, phone calls, we go out to the person's residence, we do everything we possibly can to get a hold of that individual and interview them to find out what happened, why they believe they were the victim of a biased policing by the officers. They don't cooperate, we don't know. Now,
That's right.
in
And that's why I
spite of
think
what
that
the officers say happened, that's insufficient evidence to adjudicate, because their side of it is only one half of it, and we don't know what the complaint is really about. That would be insufficient evidence.
Sounds like body cameras will be helpful in this one.
Body cameras will be helpful. Digital in-car video has been very helpful.
Yeah. So right. So that's why the numbers of complaints initiated would be a significant number because of the unavailability of the complainant later on in the investigation. So that's insufficient evidence to adjudicate. And so what about for unfounded?
Unfounded.
I think
Say there is body cameras or there's in-car video, and the complainant, the same scenario. The complainant says the officer was watching me do something. They watched me. They saw me do this. They saw me do that. And then I got into my car, and as soon as I got into my car, they pulled me over and stopped me. The officer says, no, we were coming back from another call. We were driving down the street. We saw this traffic violation. It's the middle of the night, and we stopped the individual for the traffic violation. Say it occurs in South Bureau, which means as soon as they turn on their overhead lights and their emergency equipment, that kicks in the in-car video. And the way the in-car video works, as soon as they turn it on, it gives you a minute prior. Well, watching the video, what you see is the officers coming from another location. You see a car come out, commit a traffic violation, middle of the night. You can't see from the perspective of the camera, you can't see who's in the car. The officers make the traffic stop. It's all recorded. They're very courteous. They're polite. They do everything exactly as you say. And the complainant statement is not entirely accurate.
Right. So that's helpful also. So unfounded is actually a completed
That complaint may be unfounded.
So, and then that's a completed investigation.
Yes.
Okay. So with the bias policing complaints initiated, there has been a decrease here over the years since 2010. And
Yes.
And are there reasons that have been identified for that decrease? Or they're just numbers right now?
They're numbers. I mean, what I love...
We go back a lot further than that, Commissioner. Obviously, this just goes back to 10, and the numbers have been pretty consistent since 10. But if we were to go back further, you would see a significant decrease from when we initially began investigating bias policing.
Yeah. So we haven't identified reasons, but I guess the segue into my final question is, since I don't know what types of training, what type of training do officers engage in to work towards reduction?
I think that that's the significant point, is that we've done an immense amount of training and a lot of not only culture adjustment, but but because we emphasize this, we have had an effect on its occurrence or the people's perception of occurrence.
And I've got a backup
Luann
here.
can talk about it. Just happens
Thanks.
to be here.
No video, though.
No video. For this topic, because we know the importance for everyone here, we have made great efforts to put it and weave it constantly into all of our training. So we don't want officers to think at any moment that this is constitutional policing is a secondary thing that they do after their job. It's woven into their job. So even right now, we are training officers on the new mental health course, and it's woven into there. I don't know that they would say, where's the constitutional policing block, because it's woven into how you do your job. And so, but I will say that in the fall, in all command officers, we have an 8-hour training that we'll be doing with the former director of the PERF Research Forum. She's coming in to do a fair and impartial training with our command staff for 3 days. And then I've also been working with the Museum of Tolerance, and over the next year, they have a course on building community trust through integrity. And we have 21 sessions that they've committed to just have for LAPD officers. So while we have it in every area, we want to continually have sort of booster shots throughout and continue to weave those discussions into all areas.
Thank you. And just one final comment. I found this report a lot more helpful than the last quarterly report.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
It's because I have someone smarter than me doing it.
I'd just like to make one comment about the training. The information in this report is something that we've been starting to work with Professional Standards Bureau on it, so we can start to focus on some of the areas that are the more frequent areas of complaints. So we can really focus on our traffic stops and ped stops and make sure we weave a good component into this. That information wasn't available until more recently, so we're very excited about the information that's now coming through to you in the reports, because that's going to help us with our folding it back into our training as Dr. Pinnell looks at all of our training, both at the recruit level and at the in-service level as well.
Sandy, do you have a question on that line? You know, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the systems issues that we're not identifying officers, and so we're going to have a study done and fix that. Does this keep track if the same officer had 22 independent complaints? Does that swing into the...
Yes.
Or will it swing into the new model?
Yes, it will swing into it. And if they had 22 individual complaints, that would be triggering it. I think that the Inspector General would agree with us on that. But this is why it's important for us to get...
my concern is that they're not in silos. They're interrelated.
Yes, they are interrelated with the team's reports.
And if I can point out one thing about the bias policing complaint mediation program, you know, there are guidelines, of course, on what can be accepted for mediation and what can't be. And if an officer has, and I think it's more than one or two priors in a certain time period, that would make it not eligible for bias policing mediation. Although I do have the ability to overrule that. So, for example, this past earlier this year, rather, this past quarter, I was looking at a rather mundane or routine bias policing complaint. It fit all the other criteria except for the officer having priors. And in looking at that, and we were discussing it with my staff, and you know, we came to the conclusion of, you know, what better candidate do we have than this officer for a bias policing complaint mediation to sit down with the complainant face to face and discuss the issues. So we've learned, you know, we've learned as we go, and we make those adjustments as we're going to try and impact, you know, the community in a positive way.
Commissioner Saltzman?
First, we interrupted you, and I just want to make sure that you had finished in your report telling us everything that you wanted to tell us, because if you haven't, I'd like to hear that before I then go on. You were near the end.
Oh, let's go to your questions.
So first, I want to echo Commissioner Kim's comment. I think this report is extremely helpful, much more helpful than reports we've seen in the past, and easier to understand. And thank you for that. Obviously, a lot of work went into it. And
thank you.
I'm sorry?
Thank you.
And I also want to thank you just for the historical amount of work that's gone into this. Your predecessor, Commander Webb, Chief Beck's leadership on this issue have really made a difference in how we understand the issue, how we can do our job of civilian oversight, and how what's actually happening on the street. I think we can be optimistic that things are getting better, or will be getting better. One suggestion for the future reports, I found the discussion we just had, Commissioner Kim's questions about the meaning of unfounded and insufficient evidence to be quite helpful. There's another that I don't think I understand, which is not resolved.
Okay.
And so I'd like you to help me understand what that is. But I would suggest in the future reports, because once you write it once, you'll be able to just submit it again and again, is an explanation for us about how something would fall into one of those categories and not another. But if you could start by helping me understand not resolved, I would appreciate that.
Let me give you an example then of what a not resolved complaint may be. We have another situation with a traffic stop. The complainant says that, my windows were down. The officers can clearly see me. It's a complaint about racial bias, that stopped because of the person's race. The officers can see me, and they knew what I was when they stopped me, and they only stopped me because of my race. If not for that, they wouldn't have stopped me. The officer says, no, we saw a traffic violation, and by the way, there's no in-car video here to substantiate anything. No, we saw a traffic violation. We stopped the car to enforce the traffic law, wrote them a ticket, and that's it. And we have conflicting opinions about maybe even some other circumstances that took place during the stop. It could be comments that the complainant says were uttered by the officers, and the officers say, no, we never said that. And, there's no reason. We do the entire investigation. We canvass, as we're required to do. We look for independent witnesses. There are none. It's 3 o'clock in the morning in a very isolated location. There's no video. There's no audio recordings. There's nothing else to go by. We have a completely honest, upstanding citizen that believes they were stopped because of their race. We have officers that say, no way, we didn't stop them based on their race. There's no patterns in their citation history or anything like that. We have really, we talk about a preponderance of the evidence. We're at 50% and looking for, to make a credibility determination. We have no reason to take away credibility from the complainant, and no reason to take away or give extra credibility to the officer. So we're stuck really not knowing what occurred, and that would be a not resolved complaint.
Thank you. So let me back up a little bit and just look more generally at the report. One of the things that I found particularly helpful in this report, the additional information that you provided, and that clearly took some work to do, that to a great extent confirms what I think we thought, which is the largest areas of concern arise from complaints from African Americans against Hispanic and white officers. Largest complaint number from African American males, and then African American females and Hispanic males are roughly the same percentages. And I find that helpful information. Interesting, we've talked about this before, that our data suggests a very, very, very low level or incidence of bias policing or racial profiling. Yet it's quite persistent among residents here and nationally, particularly among African American men, but not exclusively, of a perception of having been racially profiled or been the subject of bias policing. And those percentages tend to be 40%, 50%, 60% of that population perceiving that, which to me just the data here helps us understand that nature of that problem. And I appreciate that, that we're actually looking at some numbers as opposed to the anecdotal sense that we've had previously. So I guess two questions for me that come from that. One, given that particular slice of the problem, that is African American men in particular, African American women and Latino men less so, but also significant, making complaints against primarily white and Latino officers. Are there things the department's doing specifically to target that, to avoid the problem to make that perception, if that's all it is, go away, or solve the problem if the problem's actually happening?
Well, I think as Dr. Pinnell mentioned, our training is to emphasize bias policing, constitutional policing issues in general. We don't train to particular races or ethnicities. And our job, our mission is to treat everybody with respect. And that's what we try and get across in all of our training. Constitutional policing, the core values that are up on the wall right here, these are emphasized and re-emphasized and continue to be emphasized, and that's how we expect our employees to deal with people of all races.
I guess maybe a better focus with Dr. Pinnell is the point I was just making, the significant difference between the perception that many residents have of how they're treated, the difference from among groups, that is African men versus white men, for example, and the difference between those perceptions and the numbers that we see here. Is that something that you would talk about in training? Would there be a situation, for example, in training where you might ask open-ended question, are there people here who feel like at some point in their lives they have been the subject of bias policing? And then would you have a discussion of that, or is that?
We actually do have a discussion like that in the Academy. There's a couple key classes that we have. One is you as a culturally diverse entity. And I can tell you that actually that class probably doesn't exist in many other academies in police training across the state. We're very open about saying we have shifted from saying you have to come to the police department and become all blue. We want you to bring your diversity, bring your differences, bring your MBA degree or your second language or the way that you were raised to this department, because it makes us better, and that diversity makes us stronger. So we start out with a very strong campaign on that. We also have a class where we ask the recruits to look at, it's not hard for many of us to think of, is there a time that you've been victimized or somebody in your family? There's a few degrees of separation, but most people can recall a time either that something has happened to them or a family member, and so they are required to share about that and talk about their experiences with law enforcement, not just LAPD. The difficulty in part, and sadly, is that our nation struggles with this problem, and so we can't take away from anybody their experiences that they've had with multiple agencies. We do want to focus on what we can do with our agency, but we do have those discussions early on in the Academy and weave them in. And when we do the the pedestrian stop, we address it there again, and then also in the traffic stop, we talk about how they're may or may not be perceived and some of the things that they can do to ensure that they are perceived better in a lawful interaction.
Well, one of the things, I appreciate that. I'm impressed and pleased. It raises for me a question, Commander Mazelin, that maybe you can look into for a future report, which is if this training in the Academy is as effective as it sounds like it would be to me, there may be a change among the force itself. That is, that younger, more recently trained officers maybe are less likely to find themselves in this situation than older officers who were trained a long time ago. So one is if you could cut the data that way to see whether in fact there's some truth to that. That is that younger, newer officers have fewer of these kinds of complaints, or I'm not sure how you would figure that out. And then the other is, I see Chief MacArthur here, about whether that same kind of training is something that's done as an in-service for folks who've been out of the Academy for a while.
And I wanted Dr. Pinnell just to also talk briefly about the community projects that I think are very powerful in the Academy, very quickly. And we have done some in-service, and we look periodically at when we can bring some of this back in. And one of the things we were really hoping to get some good information out of this report, and it's going to help us weave some of that back in for in-service as well. But if you could just give her 2 minutes.
Sure.
maybe. I think that would be good too.
So the community projects that we assign in the academy, in the past sometimes we'd have community members come in, but we found that we'd come in with a very small sliver of exposure for those officers, and then we sent them to 21 different geographic divisions. We wanted them to capture the mindset of what happens when they go into a new division. And so we give them a community project where they research a division, and they have to research the history of positive and negative interactions with the police, things that are working well, things that aren't, and they have to go back, officers who are lost in the line of duty in that division, and some of the things that might contribute historically, but then also to look at special needs groups. There's certain communities that we have that have a higher population of deaf and hard of hearing, and so that we want them to look at the demographic of each division so that they have a template. So whenever they are transitioned to a new division, that they have a template in mind already of how to learn and have some background of that division, and that onus is on them to learn where they're going to serve and to learn about that. There's lots of resources available to them. So they'll look at the LGBT community, just the different racial or ethnic groups that might be in that community and how they've changed over time. And they'll present those reports then back to their classmates as well. So it's meant to hit on a lot of levels, but they go to their divisions when they do that report, and they also interact. They're given some freedom to go to the public library and talk to the librarian about community relations and things like that, their perception of policing.
Thank you. And I'm sorry, Chief MacArthur, I'm not sure I understood. You are doing this kind of sensitivity training, we can call it, as an in-service, or?
We do diversity training for in-service, and we are looking at, we were waiting for some of the information to come out of this report to help us fold it back to find out where we can really do targeting. And the information that came out of this report is really the pedestrian stops and the traffic stops, which we intuitively knew, but now we have the data to help us with that. And so as we work into the next rollout of training, we can weave that in then.
And to address,
Go ahead.
no, I'm sorry, to address the other point, just so I want you to know that I did get it, we'll look at breaking down. I think what you're asking for is kind of like a demographic breakdown of the accused officers and bias policing complaints. So I will look at doing that for the next report, break it down by age, tenure, maybe race, that kind of thing.
Can I ask a question about Table 3?
Yes.
Table 3, the discriminatory conduct alleged.
Yes.
And can a person be detained and handcuffed without being arrested?
Yes.
And a person can be, but in order to have a vehicle impounded, you would have to be arrested, or no?
No.
Okay. So, Table 3, what I'm interested in knowing is, of those complaints that we're focusing on, Table 3, can we have a demographic breakdown of who complained about what? So, for example, I'm interested in knowing of the 59 detainees, for example, would the majority of them be Latino? Would the majority of them be African American males? I'd like to understand, when stopped by a police officer, how likely it is that the person stopped ended up being arrested, detained, handcuffed, or whatever. And I ask that because, in my experience, the majority of African American men I know can all point to being pulled over while driving, even if they've not been arrested. And the majority of them who I know are frequently asked, whose car is this? So sometimes it doesn't end up in any kind of a citation. Sometimes it doesn't end up in any kind of a detention or anything. But what I'm trying to get to here is, will I see an unusually high frequency of African American males being stopped either as pedestrians or drivers?
Okay.
Will I see an unusually high number of Latino males stopped for the same reason?
Well,
and I'm going at it this way because, again, I'm happy with all the anecdotal information, but what I'm looking for, and that's why I ask again about statistics and facts. Give me the facts and let me ask questions about the conclusions that I'm drawing or not. But in this one, I think it is important that we get the demographics of the police officers and see the frequency with which they are being complained about.
Well, I can break that down for you, and we'll do our best to do that, but keep in mind that this data is based only upon the individuals that made a complaint about bias policing. It's not based upon the whole universe of data.
206, around 200 per year. We do 600,000 citations, 100,000 arrests.
I got that. But what I'm interested in, for those who go as far,
if you want that info, there's has to be a different way.
for those who go as far as filing a complaint,
Then-
because
then that would show us
presumably the people who go so far as to file a complaint feel really strongly about what did happen or not, what the encounter was. So I'd like to understand the demographic breakdown and how far those individuals are going.
We can do that.
I'm sorry, Chief, the point you said, you talked about the larger picture and then said if we wanted to try to understand that data, and I didn't hear what you said.
It's a different look. I'm happy
About
for
it a
that
different
look.
way. You can't get it from this report.
Right. And is that something that we track and that we will see?
We have in the past not only done stop data, but we do arrest data by ethnicity. We'll do crime data by ethnicity. We'll do, you guys see the homicide data, the crime data by ethnicity. You see arrest data by ethnicity. We can do some citation data by ethnicity.
Because I share Commissioner Madison's interest in this, and I agree that cutting these data that way would be helpful, but I also think if the department's able to give us the broader picture based on the wider set of activity, not limited to complaints, that would be helpful to us. And I don't know, looking at the Inspector General, whether that's something that he's looked at or has ideas about how we would pursue that.
Well, some of the reports and some of the information that's included in what you have before you, we look at. But what we do too is we look at things in a number of different ways on that. Now, what I can do is try to focus on some of the information that you're inquiring about now, and then I can brief you on that information. But we have a completely different way of analyzing this information on there to try to kind of capitalize on the work that's already being done here and not reproduce it.
I'm interested in an analysis of the stops, whether they be pedestrian stops or vehicle stops, to take a look at the racial breakdown, and I guess gender. I'm happy with racial and gender breakdown of the stops. And the second piece of it is of those stops that result in no arrest, no citation, no anything. And as I said, I asked this because of the, again, it's my own personal slice of life, but the instances where people who I know who are fine, upstanding citizens and who complain of being stopped while driving or while walking. So I'd like to understand that.
Yeah, I agree, and I guess I think maybe we need to ask Mr. Tefang to work with the department and help us figure out what kind of report it is we're asking for.
This and prior commissions have been through stop data in many, many forms. And we can discuss different ways that we can look at that using either that data or arrest data or many other slices of data.
Personally, I'd rather take half the time, because we already know what the answers are going to be, and work on fixing the perception and fixing the problem. I mean, we can bury ourselves in these analysis, and we already know what the answers are.
I don't know what the answer is.
Well, they're right. I think most of them are right there.
No, they're not. What I'm interested in knowing is of citizens who would not have been arrested for a crime, are African American males and Latino males stopped at an inordinately high number. Okay. That's not in here.
And what I'm interested in is once we figure out that is true, that I'm interested in what we can do training-wise to make it better.
Then it doesn't sound like they're mutually exclusive. I want the facts first, though.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
I just have one last comment and one last question, Commander. One is, I think that the progress on the mediation program is very significant, and I thank you for that. And I didn't want that to somehow get lost here. I think that's a very significant issue and very important. And the last is, with the data we have so far, are you at a place where you can talk about trends at all? Or I was trying to figure that out that's what prompted me to try to understand the categories better, was to try to figure out, well, is something good happening here? If you look at the 3-year average, so I'm looking at table 6, the 3-year average versus the second quarter of 14.
Correct.
And there's some changes in percentages.
Yeah.
Are those moving in a good direction or not?
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how to evaluate that. And
Good point.
I'd
Well,
be interested
okay.
in your thoughts about that.
My take is this. If unfounded complaints go up, I think that's a good thing, because unfounded is a substantive adjudication based upon as much information as possible. So I think that's a good thing if we can prove if we can prove that the acts alleged did not occur.
Or did occur. As long as we get
Pardon?
I'm just helping you before you go down the wrong way.
But that- yeah,
As long as we can prove one way or another.
Right, one way or the other.
Unfounded
Exactly.
going up and not resolved going down.
Well, not resolved, we'd like to see go down, because we'd like to be able to resolve the allegations one way or another. And the Chief is right, we're talking about sustained or unfounded. But it's not just sustained. I mean, we also like to see insufficient evidence to adjudicate go down, because that means we can investigate complaints more completely.
Mediated to go up.
But what I'd like to see is mediated go up.
Sure.
So if we have, unfoundeds, well, if they rise, that's all good and well. But IETAs, insufficient evidence to adjudicate, goes down, not resolves go down, and mediations going up. That's the best sign possible, because then people are taking advantage of the program, and officers benefit from it. Community members benefit from it. It's a win-win for everybody. So I think in an ideal situation, as long as mediation numbers keep climbing, not resolves, and IETAs go down, we're in pretty good shape.
Speaking of statistics, do police officers keep track of when people are rude to them when they stop the officer, when they make a stop?
I don't think they track numbers, but they remember it. I mean, they certainly have stories to tell.
Yeah.
But an officer's job is to let it slide off of their back and to be positive with the next contact.
Yep. One just last observation, then I would move approval unless there are more questions. And the last observation, in part for my fellow commissioners, but just to point out the substantive nature of this conversation, how seriously you and others in the department are taking this problem and trying to solve it. In my view, this is a conversation that would not have happened under the prior chief. The prior chief took a very different approach to this problem of bias policing. And for me, one of the most significant positive things among many that Chief Beck has done is to reorient the department's view on this, to take it seriously. We may conclude that there are no cases, but there's a perception problem. And I think his leadership on this and helping you provide the information to us that we're looking for is a very positive development. And I think that the mediation is part of it, but the way you're cutting the data is a very significant part of it. And overall, it's just the serious nature of the discussion. And I appreciate that very much. And
I appreciate your comments, Commissioner, but I think that the most significant progress we've made in this, and no disrespect to Stu, or even to training, is the things that you heard Captain Tingarides talk about in your first presentation today. The putting 40 officers into the housing developments to work on quality of life rather than crime has made a huge difference in the way that community views us and in the way that we view that community. And I think it's those kind of programs that are the solution to this. And I mean, we're all about data here, and we'll do all that we can on that end. But the real way to deal with this is through the day-to-day work that the Los Angeles Police Department does and how we do it.
We would love to be put out of business in reporting on this.
That's for sure.
Oh, I'm sorry. They're
Good.
public
Other
comment.
questions?
We have 3 public comment cards. We have Mr. Ted Hayes, followed by Mr. Herman, and Terry Wilburn.
We spent, in certain groups that I'm participating in, we spent a lot of time talking about this and trying to utilize intellectual integrity. What that means is being honest. We recognize that driving by black, while black, is a phrase that's used specifically derived from black people and their relationships with police all across this country. I try to convince people that the police own the streets, and you should behave, you should act accordingly. Be submissive, be passive, whatever. But to have the cultural identification of being uppity or having an attitude won't work, because what happens, you engage in contempt of cop. And that's the thing that happens. Police are trained to take control of the situation. They're trained to be the one giving the commands and the orders. If a former police commissioner decides to get out of the car and the police officer said, no, you can't, there are going to be headlines. So we deal with that all the time, talking about our attitude in the community in relation to the people, cops, who own the streets. Because we don't want to see people get hurt or even arrested for nothing other than engaging in attitudes and cultural behavior. It's a very difficult problem to persuade people. Right now, the Board of Education says willful defiance is not a violation that'll get a kid expelled. Why? Because black kids and Hispanic kids are willfully defiant. We had to discuss that, had a very heated discussion about that, whether that was good for the kid to orient him or her to be a good social person or whether it was accommodating bad behavior.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Herman?
We're talking about justice. We're talking about this possible IA issue that I experienced, and Ms. Madison brought it up very clear, that how is it that an officer, sergeant at arms, can approach someone in a public meeting, this is hypothetically talking, grab them by the arm during a presentation and say, you're disruptive and out of order. I'm going to arrest you and get your ass out of here. To me, that's an insult of a threat. Depends on the individual, right? Depends on the stability of the individual at the time and the moment. But there are people in this world that are comprehensive, intelligent, not to respond to this type of illegal treatment to a citizen or a constituent stakeholder in a public meeting. I have a CF number 14/001646, dated June 4th, 2014. I am the perpetrator of what goes wrong when a sergeant of arms enforces his illegal action against me during a presentation in council chambers. So this is not just a specific issue. This is an issue based on bias and racism, based on a person such as myself, a minority, disabled person, being...
Mr. Herman, address the board, please.
Being attracted, being approached by people who are not trained adequately, educated by the performance and duties and responsibilities to behave in an action that will not escalate and harm an individual, whether they're mentally or disabled, or the responsibility under the Brown Act is that they are not fairly treated.
Okay. Commissioner Madison, do you want to move or
We have another speaker, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
I can't get my card up.
I didn't see you.
Mr. Wilburn, and then we do have another card, Mr. Michael
Sorry.
Hunt.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Sure.
How you all doing and everything? My complaint, not a complaint, but there are some citizens, I agree, that don't like police officers to stop them. And I could go along with the training that some officers don't. But when the information is given to the officers do an investigation, but some lack investigation for car theft. They're selling new old cars and putting people in storage places. This is not just here. This is in Oakland. And there is a training that I noticed and things to that nature that the officers don't do their job because of their lack of friendship or their leaders that duplicate badges, and which I will speak on my public address, and then serve to certain people. If a crime is being committed, why should I go to another citizen when I'm going to an officer? That's what I'm trying to make.
Thank you, sir. Sorry.
Mr. Michael Hunt.
Thank you again. My name is Michael Hunt. I've been here a lot of times, about the same times. I've been arrested 51 times. 9th Circuit winner, District Court winner, and Settlement Conference winner. Tells you that you guys are doing something wrong because I'm here looking like this. It explains to you guys that the law is being broken even as we speak, and our officers are doing the same thing for the last 10 years that cost us $7.5 million in payments out to the citizens and 2 different attorneys. I'm very ashamed that I have to come back down here like this, and that this is my working outfit and this is my working station now. Every time that we get arrested and somebody like me gets stopped for working is a disgrace to the city of Los Angeles, because they pay my wages and pay me to sue them, to tell them the right thing to do. We ask...
Mr. Hunt?
Yes.
Okay, you have to keep your comments to the agenda item.
Well, it is the agenda item. I'm being stopped 52 times. That's racial profiling. That's bias policing.
Okay.
I can't get any more direct than that. I mean, you arrested me for wearing my T-shirt, and you put that on the ticket. Come on. You guys are paying for that, and you guys constantly keep on making the same mistake, and you guys saying, oh, and it's costing the citizens, taxpayers. It's costing everybody in here money when you do bias policing and racial profiling. If that's not on topic, that $215,000 check was on topic. And just to say this, you guys are still breaking the law, and I tried to tell you guys in a nice way, and you guys ignored me.
There are no other cards on this item.
Move approval of the item.
Second? Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We are now on item number 9, public comment period. We have 10 comment cards. We have Mr. Herman, followed by Mr. Michael Hunt.
Yeah, let me say something before. You know, it's in this same great country that gives you guys the right that you're exercising here, gives me a right too. And it gives me the right to say that hoods and masks and the words on your T-shirts make it difficult for me to even listen to you, and are not necessary to communicate. Go ahead.
Citizens of Los Angeles, have we gotten what we asked for? Most certainly we have. For when it comes to the conventions of civility and decorum, formula of dress and attire, Michael Hunt, Batman who shows up every so often, who's to say that this is not to be tolerated? Do we not have rights under the Constitution? How about under the Brown Act, 54950, 54963? How about our First Amendment right? But let's get off that topic now and do real business. The business I'm speaking about is our officers rank and file who yet bear the burden of your responsibility to speak to the mayor, and I'm calling you out, Eric Garcetti, you must sit with his commissioners and develop a budget for our LAPD officers, rank and file, to receive the benefits of monies, appropriations, and funding for you to receive the raises that I, the general public, Mr. Herman, civil rights activist, demand today that this body, this commission, along with Mr. Chief Beck, go to the attention of you, Eric Garcetti, and we say as the public, in public interest in the state of California, in Los Angeles, is that we demand that our officers receive the same equal access and fair pay that all of you deserve under rank and file. The administrative got their raises, and you're making an excessive amount of monies, and I, the taxpayer, and the stakeholder, demand some equal attention to this matter, and I'm calling you out, Eric Garcetti. Thank you.
Mr. Michael Hunt, followed by Richard Garnett Jr. and Carl Williams.
I just can't believe it. You know why? Because you guys make the laws. Brandenburg versus Ohio gave KKK the right to march peacefully. Cohen versus California, and yet you guys sit up here and play dumb. Now, when it comes to the African American community, you guys play dumb. But when we act like you guys don't know the law. But you guys made them. Our forefathers made them. Who would spend $7.5 million on 2 outside attorneys to tell you that you're wrong, you can't enforce something? And then when I come back and tell you guys don't listen. But when a federal judge tells you something, you do listen. And then you come back and make the same mistake 5 years later? That's dumbfounded. These people work. This is the working community. You don't mess with working people. I don't mess with your job. I was just happy down there being the butter man. I wasn't down here messing with you guys at all. A federal judge told you that. Susan Siegel says you can display anything on the boardwalk, but if you're African American, you can. You know why? You know why? Because the builders, the contractors, and everybody's come in and want to develop Venice Beach, and they want to put all the poor people out. Everybody's jobs count. If you listen to what I'm saying, you won't make the same mistake twice, 3 times, 4 times, no matter what you do. If I'm going to obey the law, I'm going to obey the federal law. The United States of America, the Constitution that our forefathers wrote for us. And this guy over here that don't know what Brandenburg versus Ohio is and Cohen versus California, get your law book out, sir. All this is legal. All this is legal through the Supreme Court.
No, nobody said it wasn't legal.
Richard Garnett Jr. Followed by Carl Williams.
I'd just like to say that if you guys are going to have laws in a federal building, you should make sure that everybody knows the laws before entering that building. Not just assume that people knows law, because nobody really knows law. If you actually check it out, it's only young people right now getting hit. You know? That's all I have to say. Oh yeah, and one more thing. I don't believe there's a law saying I have to open up my bag for you.
Carl Williams. Carl Williams.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm a vendor from Venice Beach, California, and I'm tired of being harassed by the police in Venice Beach. And I'd like to ask Chief Beck, you in control of the Venice Beach Police? They work under your command? Okay, so I would like to know why the store owners and store people control the police. Whenever they call the police and tell them there's a vendor displaying these items or that items, they listen to them and come there and harass us and give us ticket for no reason. They, give people ticket for burning incense. They give you ticket for, say, this is illegal, that is illegal.
it's illegal for the vendors, but it's not illegal for the store people. Like, they're the only one that have right to display stuff and make money. And the thing is this, I'd like to know if there's a law, say, the Venice Beach is only for artists only. If they have a law, such a law, say, the beach only for artists only and not for other vendor to display their stuff. Because that's what the so-called new ordinance that they come up with, they say they want artists only, and regular vendor, people that display other items can't be there. You have to be an artist. I would like to know if there's such a law, say the beach, the state of California give the beach only for artists only. There is a law, such a law in the state of California. So the beach is only for artists only. That's a part of the state of California.
Mr. Williams, this is not. Mr. Williams.
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is your opportunity to address the board. It's not a question and answer period.
Thank you, sir.
Bernardo Nelson, followed by Bill Watkins.
Thank you for this opportunity, and good morning, good afternoon to all. Mahatma Gandhi said one time, he says, I never met an American that truly is acting like an American, and which stated in the Constitution, in which our forefathers have stated on Christian beliefs. And he also said that I never met a Christian who act like a Christian, that follow the principles of God. I find it hard to believe that people with higher education become such fools, and cannot feel the consciousness or the pulse of the city of people on Venice Beach to have a decent living, make a decent earning, where that people who put these laws into effect find themselves ineffective to our economy. This country is going to hell in a handbasket fast because of the mere fact that fools who once called themselves wise have become fools. Now, don't turn around and look at your neighbors because I don't want you to identify yourself. But what I'm saying is that people just want to live. They just want to live and have a living. That's all they want to do. But the police come down there, and I respect them. I do. I respect them. A lot of them are good, and a lot of them are not so good. That goes wrong with no matter where you go in life. In all families, you're going to find one bad apple. So all I have to say this here is that they become judge and jury of what we do down there. I make my product with my hands. They say to me, I buy it in the stores. No, I don't. I make it. It's an art. It's a craft. They've been making and selling incense since the beginning of time, and to the honor and glory of our Lord and Savior. But yet tell me, you can't do it. They've been telling me this for 25 years on that beach. When is it going to stop? When?
Bill Watkins. Okay, and the next one, I can't read the first name. It looks like Carlisle Douglas.
Welcome.
Good afternoon, guys. I just really come to find out, I'm a Rastafari. The red is for the blood, the green is for the land, and the yellow is for the gold. And I believe Rastafari have rights like anyone else to stand in Venice Beach and reason with people and show them our colors, not have to cover it up from the police, because we tried to do a honest bread. That's all I have to say. What can you guys do for us? Because we need a job. Thank you.
Mr. Ted Hayes, followed by Kenneth Jenkins and Terry Wilburn.
Your city attorney has hijacked your meeting. He not only controls your body language, don't address the audience, address the board. You can't do that, Mr. City Attorney. It's called public comment. Some things are not proper. They're probably illegal, some kind of obscenities, profanities, or firing in a crowded theater. But to tell people to address the board and control their body language, I think that might rise to a point of somebody complaining, like me. took me out of character for a moment. Don't do that, because I'll be standing up yelling at you. The thing is, you haven't dealt with Charlie Chaplin. When we make our complaints about
I didn't hear
officers.
with who?
Charlie Chaplin.
Oh, okay.
The statue at the Bradbury. Have you seen it? And that's where they conduct their interviews when you go to complain and so forth and so on. And they don't allow you to go upstairs. There's no one-way mirrors and tape recording, things like that. You do it downstairs next to Charlie. I don't think that's contemptuous of your complaint, but it makes it sound ludicrous, doesn't it? And so I've been there a number of times, and you have to realize about the complaints, this is what they do. They indicate your complaint number 5457034 is unfounded. What is 5575034? Nobody has an idea. I don't know what it is. When I go to the Bradbury building and the officers come down the stairs and they see me, they say, "You again?" Yeah. So what they do in response is send me something with a bunch of numbers and I have no idea what they're talking about. And that's the way they want it.
Thank you. Welcome.
Yes, thank you, sir. Mr. President, Madam Vice President, Police Commissioners, Chief Beck, and Inspector Bustamante. My name is Ken Jenkins. I'm also a vendor on Venice Beach Boardwalk, and I've been there for about 9 years. I'm a photographer as well as digitized designer, and I also design T-shirts as well as silk screening, which is my art and craft that I've been doing there for about 9 years. I am one who also gets constantly harassed. As of last week, I was asked to remove my photography by one of your lieutenants out of the Pacific Division, Chief Beck, and that is a total violation of the ordinance. You know, I was actually asked to remove my photography. So I would just like to pose the question for the officers to really look at what the ordinance says. It says that, you know, you can have your photography there that is created, you know, by yourself. And all of the photography that is there has been shot by myself. And I was actually told that it needed to be removed by one of your lieutenants. And I put in a complaint in regards to that because they totally violated not only my First Amendment right, but they totally violated the ordinance. So, you know, that in itself, again, you know, we're being constantly harassed, you know, for no reason. I also have a service dog, you know, because I have, you know, PTSD. I have writer's disease and a few other ailments that I have in my body. And I have my service dog card, and I'm getting questioned and interrogated by the officers, asking me, well, what kind of disease do I have? And they're not supposed to ask me that. I show them my service dog card, and that should be it. And I'm getting interrogated about my own ailments that I have. I don't appreciate that. I think I've been disrespected.
Thank you, sir.
I know I've been some disrespect. I'm supposed to be here in uniform, but yet, Chief, not getting on you, but when you mailed my uniform in the badge, my neighbor used that, and he used it in various different forms as he attacked people, and I really don't like my neighbor because that's my home, first of all, and I bought that home way before the man died or had a heart attack. But I can't go along with without having a uniform, but I don't like uniforms. But the thing is, I thank you very much, but the duplication that he's doing, and now he broke into my home and got all information of NASA. He probably watching us through his card or his ability that he has. But the thing is, I have a diversity of my 4-star, my marshal, the judges has been attacked. their homeland security. No one is doing anything concerning this. Although these people who get these badges and uniforms, who may or may not can speak English well, they are being abused, or it's a subject matter that these people are attacking various other people, even in all the way to Long Beach, all the way to Palm Springs, that I know of, all the way up to the border, okay, on both ends. And I have no idea, and all the staff, I'm saying, receiving $25 trillion or 28, may I speak up?
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, receiving my funding from my brokers who have been kidnapped, even the staff here who had recommended and spoke towards me. I seen him on TV, and I said, why is he being charged? You know?
Okay, finish up because I don't.
Huh?
Finish up because
okay.
I'm in trouble for letting you.
You're abusing the system, even the Bismarck, Ford, and Smith. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Well, we have one final comment card. We have Beavis Igbinoba.
Good afternoon, everybody, and good afternoon to the audience. I really want to ask the question to the chief of the police. At the fact we are vendors on the boardwalk, we are trying to make honest living because for we not to go and steal or to start begging for money. The fact your officers always come there to harass us unnecessary, where there's a lot of crime behind the closed door of Venice Beach. They're not into that, but they are into we trying to make honest living. By the law of federal constitution, we have the full right to set up on the boardwalk to display our items. Like my brother just said just now, we are Rastafari, we are presenting the conqueror Lion of Judah. Like the other brother just said just now, some people are there selling incense. Most of every one of you in the audience here, you are Christians. Why can't we refuse incense or refuse red, gold, and green? And there's no job. You have to think about we trying to survive, to make honest living, because we are not doing nothing wrong. They say we need art on the boardwalk, but if you really come to technical reality, the art, they are not making nothing, because the paint and the toothbrush they are using or the canvas is not made by them. We are the same. And again, the police officers that will come to us say, hey, we need your business license. When the time to pay by February next year now, to pay the waters, we go to the State Board of Equalization and say, hey, we ain't got no money. Why? Because the police are harassing us. The first thing they tell us, the police don't have no right to harass us on the boardwalk, because that is what listed, oceanfront boardwalk. Please, sir, I'm begging you, the chief of police.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. We are now on item number 10, closed session. The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss item numbers 10A and B in accordance with Government Code 54957.
They sit around and wonder what royal folk would do. And that's what simple folk do.
Oh, no, really?
I have it on the best authority. Yes, that's